Hello there, welcome back to Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. This week we've got a big Champions League tie coming up between Ajax going to Liverpool. Can they get a huge Champions League result? We'll have to wait and see. The big news that has shocked the world this week was the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, but we largely expect this game to go on, continue this week. And to preview the match, I've got Matt Addison here from the Liverpool Echo. How are you doing, Matt? Are you looking forward to the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me on. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what this kind of new-ish Ajax are like. I think it's probably fair to call them that. It seems like it's that every single summer, doesn't it, with the exits and the players that they have to bring in and a new manager now. So yeah, I think it'll be a good game, two good teams. And yeah, Liverpool not in the greatest moment. So possibly a bit of an opportunity really for Ajax to possibly pull off something of a surprise result, I might say.
Yeah, you are right. It is a chance for Ajax. But there's a lot of thought as well that this isn't the peak Ajax we've had in the last few years, where they always player sales, change of manager will have that impact. Before we delve in, I just want to invite people to, if you enjoy these things that we do, these previews, do give us a like. This is available on YouTube and the Football-Oranje website. Subscribe if you're new, and obviously get involved in the comments or on Twitter and let us know what you're thinking ahead of the game. We'll tell you our predictions later. This could be quite an open game. When the draw came out for this Champions League group, I thought it'd be open. I thought it'd be fun. There's no way a team's going to get 6 wins out of 6 in this. I think that there's going to be points taken from each other. And yeah, lots to look forward to in terms of these Ajax players. Can they do it on the big stage? There's always that question. Can they do it against those biggest teams in Europe? Liverpool not in their finest moments. A few players that are standing out for Ajax ahead of this game. Steven Bergwijn. Obviously, since leaving England, he's ripping it up in the Eredivisie again. And it begs that question, how good is he really? Can he do it in games such as this one? Can he stand out again? His goal record is ace so far this season for Ajax. Does someone like him, that bit of pace and that trickery, does that worry Liverpool? They obviously are going to turn up and play that quick game, getting players into great positions, using the wide areas. How does that make you feel, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it's one to look out for, I think, certainly. I think we kind of saw that last week with the Napoli game. I'm not going to try and pronounce the Georgian left winger's name. I'm sure people know who I'm talking about. But he kind of tore Liverpool to shreds, really. He wasn't the only one. I think he was probably the standout. And yeah, it's one of those where that wasn't really a shock. If you've watched Liverpool a lot this season, you probably would have seen something similar, a couple of times, maybe not quite to that extent. But I think in certain games, maybe against Crystal Palace, certainly against Fulham, Liverpool have had a few defensive issues, really. I think they've not particularly performed well. I think that the Napoli result was it was coming a little bit. I think when you come up against a team with the quality and the ability really to just see that high line and really expose it, I think Ajax could be something similar. Obviously, the game will be at Anfield. That'll change things. It will be, a kind of a Liverpool team that want to put right what went wrong against Napoli. I think it probably would have helped Ajax to be the first team rather than the second team to play them in Europe this season. But yeah, there is an opportunity. I think Steven Bergwijn was a good player, did well in the Premier League. It's no real surprise that he's gone back to Holland and started to perform really well when you give him a consistent opportunity. And yeah, he is one that I think you'd look to give the ball to as much as possible. The evidence of this season, really, I really do think it is, generally speaking, a myth around Trent Alexander-Arnold and his defending. But certainly this season, it's been very, very hard to defend his defending, if you like. So yeah, there's definitely a weakness there at the moment for Liverpool, and be interesting to see what they do really with the centre backs, and whether Joel Matip comes back in. I think probably will do. I think that'll help. But yeah, Liverpool really were not good against Napoli at all last week.
Let's get into more of these problems that Liverpool are having and what Ajax could probably exploit, whether they can win this midfield battle or whether Liverpool can have this good performance to respond. If they didn't play at the weekend, Ajax have. Does that make them in better form at this stage of the season? You could argue maybe it does, having that game. But they came up against a very defensive-minded Heerenveen, a team that are actually doing pretty well in the league, and beat them 5-0, and it was comfortable. They were convincing. And like the Rangers game, we're pulling them to shreds. Very promising for Alfred Schroeder, the new manager, that he's being able to pull out these performances from a relatively new group of players this early in the season and not slipping up. So this is why this is such a big test, not just for the players, but for the manager Schroeder as well. Does he have a tactical nous to get the best out of his midfielders? Because that's their biggest strength. Ajax have got some problems defensively, you could argue. The goalkeepers are good, but not a great one. And they don't have an out-and-out striker. Brian Brobby is a big target man, but hasn't really been showing us the best of that. He's been having some bench opportunities. And when it's the bigger games, he doesn't tend to play. One big player that's coming, I think I say big player because he's got a lot of attention. Mohamed Kudus has come into the frame, having basically not been given any games at the start of the season. He's been given a chance in the Champions League against Rangers and against Heerenveen as, I suppose you call it a false nine, as a striker. He's taken it. He's scoring goals. He looks really good. And those questions about his lack of defensive work kind of taken out of the question in these kind of games because he's playing as a striker. Makes you think there's a great chance for him to, again, set his marker. He nearly went to Everton, of course, but if he did well against Liverpool, that would sort of add another layer to the story. But he's a fine player. And I wonder, again, like how will Liverpool deal with all of these players that are in good form, that are moving around lots? Is this something that Ajax can exploit?
Yeah, I think it is. The evidence is there at the start of this season. I think in terms of the way that Liverpool have played so far, it's kind of been okay against teams that kind of got a plan, but they don't really have much quality in the final third. I think we saw that against Everton. I think they were a really good example of they knew how to nullify Liverpool and stop them getting chances. I know Liverpool hit the post and the crossbar and did get into a couple of decent positions, but generally speaking, Everton did pretty well and they were able to counter-attack as well. There was a couple of opportunities where if they just had one or two better players in forward areas, they would have been able to score 100%. So, yeah, I think we've seen that, not just Everton, Palace and Fulham I mentioned, they were able to counter Liverpool a lot. And I think Ajax is definitely a team where you would look at it and think, well, they're better than those teams. They've got better quality in those areas. They've got players who can make better decisions. And I think Liverpool are just going to have to be a little bit more sensible, really. I think against Napoli last week, I was surprised, really, that they played it in a way that they seemed to think that they were much better than Napoli. And, you know, the evidence of the last sort of 3 or 4 seasons possibly is that is the case. But the reality at the moment is it just isn't working for them. So, yeah, if they're going to be that open as what they have been so far this season, 100% Ajax will score because, you know, like I say, Napoli managed to do it. I think Ajax are similar, really, in terms of that incision, the counter-attack, the pace, and they've got the players that can finish those chances. So I think for Liverpool, if they're going to keep a clean sheet, and that will be a big thing, I think against a team like Ajax at the moment, the way Liverpool are playing, I think if they're going to keep a clean sheet on Tuesday night, it's going to have to be a different approach. You know, quite simply, the midfield isn't working at the moment for Liverpool. That's leaving the defence exposed as well. And if they do that against Ajax, they'll get punished. It's just as simple as that, really, for me. They've got to be a little bit more pragmatic. I know Jurgen Klopp doesn't like doing those things. He doesn't like changing. He likes to play the exact way that he wants to play. But yeah, I just think at this point to get a result, which is what Liverpool need at this point, having lost the first game, you know, they can't afford to lose the first 2 in the Champions League group. Then you've really put a lot of pressure on yourself. So yeah, I think if I was Ajax, I'd be watching the game last week and thinking, on the one hand, Liverpool can't be as bad again. They will improve and they will be better. But on the other hand, there is going to be at least 2 or 3 clear-cut opportunities, I think, for Ajax to score.
Makes you wonder how this game is going to play out. Do Ajax get more than half of the ball? Because you would say that this season they haven't had that kind of opposition yet. How do they play this game themselves? They're not going to sit back either. That's not the way that they'll play at all. So then I think, well, how many players would you put from Ajax into Liverpool 11 at the moment?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, at the moment, I'm sure a lot of Liverpool fans might say 11, but
yeah,
it's one of those where I think, you know, it's so hard to judge it. I think for me, Trent Alexander-Arnold, when he's at his best, there's no one better. I'd rather have him than anyone else. But at the moment, that just simply isn't the case. I think that there's a real lack of options, really, in terms of him. That there's no one else that can play at right back in midfield as well. There's kind of players being run into the ground already this season, which I think is a real issue. You look at someone like James Milner. He's a good player to play a few minutes here and there, but he's not Champions League 3 times a week, 90 minutes intense. Like, he just can't do that at that age. So I think at the moment there's probably a bigger number of Ajax players that would have a say of being able to come into this Liverpool team than there has been for a long time. Really, I think that's more to do with Liverpool being miles off what they should be at the moment.
Form and confidence, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just really hard to predict, really. And the other thing is injuries as well. Liverpool have got so many players that are out. Thiago is back now, which is good, but yeah, how long will it be until he gets another injury? I'm not too sure.
I think when it comes to that right back position, it's one of Ajax's weaker positions, actually. The expected 11 that may well play this midweek, we Pasveer in goal, probably looking at a back four which is unpredictable to predict. It's probably David Blind at left back. Calvin Bassey is injured. That would be a big miss centre back if he is. Jurgen Timber will definitely play. And then Divine Delench has been the weak link at right back. So those fullback areas, David Blind has been receiving a lot of criticism the last couple of years, actually, for Ajax and Netherlands national team. If that persists, will they be areas that Liverpool can target? Midfield is going to be Alvarez, and everyone nearly went to Chelsea. Kenneth Taylor, who we'll speak about in just a second, and Steven Berghuis. And it's an attack where Dusan Tadic is now playing sort of more as a right winger. That may happen again against Liverpool. He's learning this new position. Got a hat-trick of assists from out wide at the weekend. Steven Berghuis probably on the left, and then Mohamed Kudus playing as a striker. Yeah, Kenneth Taylor. I'm gonna big him up a little bit here because he hasn't been bigged up too much yet, and I'm gonna start the hype about him. He's a great midfielder. He's left-footed. He likes playing in that left midfield region when he's playing more in the middle, but he goes out to the left a lot. Some similar traits to Frenkie de Jong, but not the same player. In the way he loves to keep the ball, he passes really well. His movement is brilliant. He has a great creativity in him as well. He's a bit more forward-thinking than Frenkie de Jong in the way he can swing a ball into the box and have a shot. Not the finished article yet, but this is one where if he steps up and plays well against Liverpool, I think a lot of people are suddenly going to be saying his name that aren't Ajax fans or Dutch football fans. But he's been called up for the Dutch national team and the provisional squad for the upcoming games. Does he get a spot at the World Cup? There are a few people saying that he might even be a starter there. And that's a bit of a wild prediction. But, in the coming years, this guy looks like he could be a top talent. And he's got the attitude to match as well. Something Ryan Gravenberch didn't have. A name people know now, going to Bayern Munich. Should have stayed with Ajax and developed more. But no, Kenneth Taylor might be someone who can pull those strings against Liverpool. How much does of interest of him abroad so far? Is there much talk about him, Jurgen Timber?
Yeah, I think, both of them have been linked. I think Timber was linked with United all summer, wasn't he? So he's one that's kind of on people's radar, and interesting that he chose not to go there, and United chose not to go down that path. But yeah, I was listening to Rory Smith actually on a different podcast about a week or two ago, and he was talking about that Ajax midfield and the feeling that Ryan Gravenberch had moved on, but there was other players, Kenneth Taylor being one of them, that have come in and maybe are not the same level now, but have got that higher ceiling. And I think that's the real thing that you have to just admire really about Ajax, is that they lose so many players. There's so much turnover. There's so much uncertainty with all the positions. Every summer, someone is linked, whether it happens or not. There's usually a summer of speculation, but they've always got that next one. They've always got the next one to come in and do that straight away. And I think, if I was an Ajax midfielder, whoever it is, whether it's Taylor, whether it's someone else, I think you'd look at the Liverpool midfield at the moment. I assume that Thiago will play, but Fabinho hasn't been in great form. Jordan Henderson's injured. Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain are injured. James Milner looks absolutely shattered. Harvey Elliott is an exceptional young player, really talented, but is maybe not the best sort of going backwards defensively. I don't think he's necessarily as switched on. I think if I was Ajax, that's the area that I'd be looking. You mentioned before the possession, and how is that going to be split? Can Ajax actually go to Anfield and have a bit more of the ball? I mean, the way that Liverpool are playing at the moment, I don't think that is out of the question. I think, for someone in that Ajax midfield, you'd have to look at it as a real chance to go and stamp your authority on the match, really, and be able to keep the ball. We know how good Ajax are at that sort of side of the game. And I think, for Liverpool at the moment, that's been a real issue. The biggest issue out of many issues so far this season really has been that control, the ability for someone to just put their foot on the ball and keep it. And obviously Thiago will help that. And if Thiago plays, you'd expect Liverpool to be a lot better than what they have been without him. But I think there is an opportunity for Ajax. I'm not expecting, Ajax to come and dominate from the start, but we've seen a pattern really so far this season of teams maybe have been a little bit cautious to begin with, but very quickly they've realised that if they just pass the ball around, Liverpool are not going to be able to get close to them. And I think that's probably the worry really, is that the Ajax midfield seems to be working really well at the moment. Yeah. Liverpool's midfield certainly doesn't. So I think that's certainly a key area for people to watch out for.
Very interesting, man. Obviously, you've watched Liverpool a lot more than me. I still have that fear factor of Ajax going to the top team in the group. Not the top seed, that was Ajax. But I'm still concerned about it. I'd love to hear your prediction, but I think it's going to be open. I can't see that if this is a 0-0, I'll eat my hat. But I'm going to go Liverpool 2, Ajax 2 for this. And this is a game that Liverpool can't lose, but I also think Ajax is going to play very well in it. If Liverpool do get a win, I think it will be a scrape. I don't think it's going to be a particularly convincing one. I think Schroeder's got a lot to prove in this game, and I actually have a bit of faith already that he's going to do well as Ajax manager. I was critical of him at the start of the season, but I'm beginning to eat my words. So, yeah, I'm going to say 2-2 and a really entertaining game on Tuesday. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that happening. I think it's an interesting one in that Liverpool tend to struggle against teams that sit back and defend. And I don't necessarily think Ajax will do that. I think Ajax are going to play out. They're going to be quite attacking. And obviously that can go one or two ways. I think Liverpool at the moment have got a real problem with conceding the first goal. I think it's something like only once in the last 15 or 16 games that they've actually taken the lead. Now, a lot of those games were the back end of last season. There was so many matches going on. You can kind of understand it. They were still able to win it. They got as far as they could in all of the competitions, and it was all right. But that pattern has started at the start of this season as well. They've been going a goal behind in games, and I think if Ajax take the lead, it wouldn't be a massive shock the way that Liverpool have been playing at the moment. So, yeah, I think Ajax 100% will score. I think 2-2 is probably a fair result to kind of expect. It's strange. I know this sounds like a really obvious prediction, but it genuinely could be for Liverpool a win, a loss, or a draw. It could be anything at the moment from Liverpool. You really don't quite know what to expect. Like you say, if Liverpool do win, I think it'll be an entertaining one. I think it'll be one that they kind of outscore their opponents rather than dominate and control it. So, yeah, 2-2 is probably what I had in my head, but I don't know. I'll mix it up. Maybe go 1 each, something like that. But yeah, I think at the moment you just don't really know what to expect from Liverpool. There's been one or two hopes, and Thiago coming back will help to those hopes. But yeah, at the moment it feels hard to predict a Liverpool win.
Well, that's exciting for Ajax fans and Dutch football fans in general listening. They'll have their hopes up now. Let's hope it is a good game. And of course, if you did enjoy this, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and leave down in the comments below if you're a Liverpool fan, an Ajax fan, or just Dutch football fan. Let us know what you think will happen in the game. And just in general, your thoughts about Ajax this season. Have they surpassed your expectations? And can they do well in games like this? Do let us know. Matt, thank you very much for joining me on Football-Oranje. I can see that your Twitter handle is there if people would like to follow you. Tell us a bit more about your work.
Yeah, so I'm the editor of Liverpool.com, which is the sister site to the Liverpool Echo. We cover Liverpool in various forms, podcasts. We're going to get you on one of our shows before the Ajax game to preview that and get the lowdown on that. But yeah, we cover every element that you can think of around Liverpool, whether it's YouTube, podcasts, written stuff on the site. And yeah, I'm kind of in control of what we look at, what we write about, what we do, and we've got loads of talented writers who do that. So yeah, that's kind of us on Liverpool.com. Any Liverpool angle, we will have it covered.
Nice one, Matt. Thank you very much. And this is a little plug to go and check out the one that's over on your site now. And maybe we can do vice versa. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and leave down your predictions below.